Okay, continuing on with the Droid Empress. Let's take a look. Where are we at so far? Can just be closer. Or I just get my controls. I'm getting my controls in order, man. Alright. It's a little low. But we'll live. My left controller is a little low. I said I liked what was happening here. Right? Let me see it in reverse. As I said before. Uh-oh. Why does my thing always change on me? Hold on. It's supposed to be on lock panels. Oh, because I changed some of the things around. Okay. Alright, I get it. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing this. Okay. I'm seeing this area here. We're still on our one layer. Yeah. That's all we need is one there. I feel like it should be a little thinner. Yeah, because this is, I don't want it to be the same thickness as that. Let's teardrop it a little bit. Because it's like the drape. As I talk through this, it's so strange talking, doing this. Because I'm describing what I'm, this intuitive thing. So this is the drape coming down. This in the back. It's not really the drape. It's almost like a it's like a drape cape kind of piece that comes down. It's gonna be it's separate from the frontal piece, um, which tells me something already about the frontal piece. So let me see something because I like where it's going. I just want to finagle it a little bit. Here you go. I feel like it needs to kind of come away. It's going a little too linear or too vertical. As I'm looking in the drawing, it's like real vertical. All you see is hip, right? Um, yeah, something like that. Okay. And let me see if I can. I feel like I need to extract something. Not like that, though. I feel like I need to break something up. Like that. No. Let go of shadow. Because then it becomes too frontally lit. I'm only dealing, literally, I'm only dealing with like 100% dark and, high contrast. Although when the occlusion gets put in, the occlusion begins to change things or begins to model things out in some ways. But it still maintains this is 100% black, um, which is what I like. That should be cut maybe. Oh, don't like that one. Or should I scoop it? Get rid of that knot. I'll leave the knot. I'll leave the knot. Toom, toom, toom. Do the stair steppy kind of thing. I'll leave that too. See? Now we got that boom, 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 boom kind of a feel to it. Right? Thanks for bearing with me when it comes to describing this stuff because I don't normally describe it. I just do it. but it's cool because it's good to analyze. It's good to analyze. I'm analytical, so it's good to analyze. For those who don't see it, okay, let's say, all right, so we can, since I'm recording this and for viewing, what am I seeing? So what am I seeing? Let's in case for those who can't see it, maybe sometimes people can only see like the final result, right? If I was to do this in blue, let's say, and I know my markers are different these days in my application, so let me just do this different. So this is what I'm seeing, right? I'm seeing this. I'm not gonna. I always also while I do this, this is a good conversation too. I don't. You notice in my making in my time lapse videos, you don't. I do not do a lot of highlighting and filling. I don't use that. I use fill when I'm in Photoshop. I use fill all the time. But when I'm actually drawing, I don't utilize fill. Now we got a little lag going on. I think it's because of the video recorder. I don't actually use fill. And I'm going to tell you why. Same thing goes for when so if you see it lagging, it's because of the video recorder. We're doing it at 60 frames per second today to see what it looks like. When let me just do the rest here. And that lag is throwing me off. So, but that's why I'm glad maybe I need to do it at 30 frames per second because this shouldn't be doing this. And then the back is this, and then I'll describe why I use. Let's do it. I like to draw at a certain angle. Right. Well, she doesn't have a. Okay, let's just leave her as blue. This is just for the discussion. Okay. Kind of give you an idea as we describe this before we go further. And then it may get too complex or something, and people are like, what in the hell is he drawing? Because they can't see it until I start to add color or something like that, right? So let's say this is the dress I'm seeing, right? This is or the dress or the draping, because this is all my Mecha world people, the Andromeda and the Wild Walker and all these beings and stuff. But either way, so this is how it's flowing on her. I will add some occlusion real fast. Let me just save this. I will add some occlusion just so you see how this is supposed to be coming out. Right now, I don't call it, so when I the occlusion is going to sit where on top. Yep. I'm just going to call it occ. When I shade, I do it with the mind frame of when I do 3D. So I don't add shading or quote unquote rendering the way you would do it, let's say, or in the same steps maybe as when rendering is taught for, let's say, drawing, right? We're drawing or building drawings for paintings or something. I do it in the process of 3D, which is actually based on all those mechanics, right? But I see exclusively like that. I do occlusion, so I'll just show it. Stop talking. So, let's say I had. Okay, I'll just do it like this before I even add it to her. Let's say I had a box, right? Some boxy, shapy, weirdy thingy, right? Some box shaped weird thing, right? And when I go to shade this, the very first thing I'm thinking is where's the occlusion? Or I can do it two ways. I can say where's the occlusion and where's the self-shading. So the self-shading is going to be where the object turns away from the light without it, and it's not a cast shadow. It's just the object is not receiving light on that part of it, right? Or like a ball, the classic one is a ball, right? And then the ball has a highlight, but it also has what we call like a terminator. In other words, that's where That's where the ball, that's where the spherical shape turns away from, let's say the light source is here, turns away from the light source. Let's make it a little bit bigger, right? Turns away from the light source, right? And begins to become shaded, right? But that term, but so it creates, so it winds up being shaded. So I'm just doing this little hatch, right? So this is what we call self-shading in 3D, right? That's self-shading. The terminator, this area, really is affected by secondary light, because technically, if you have a sphere, just light it for yourself, and that's the highlight, let's say, and you're lighting it directly, right, with a directional light of any sort, nothing like not an area light, but directional light of some sort. Everything else is going to be black. All you're going to see is that. It's going to be like that. But when it's hit by, so I just had to say what a terminator is, right? So when you have a sphere and it's on a surface, that surface is going to bounce light back into the form. Okay. Now, technically, some would say that if it's bound, if the light's going here, that somehow it's still scattering back up into there. So when it does that, let's say we would have this, right? This is before this is before the bounce light hits. We would have that, and when the bounce light hits, I'm just going to use let me see a soft brush. Let's see if it works. When that bounce hits, it's going to create, let's say, a 50% difference. I mean, that's like, I think some artist said that, something like shadows or whatever it is, like, or it's 50%, right? Some little thing like that, right? So you're going to have like this, right? So it's receiving illumination, but obviously it's not it's 50%, let's say 50% or less than the directional light, okay? And then what you were left with, so you see this on like illustrations of like planets or any type of object, which technically it shouldn't even be on a planet. That's a whole other conversation, okay? Because the void of space is not bouncing secondary light. Just saying. So that's the secondary. So this is the secondary light. So this area here, I have to say it because, but I read a thing about the Terminator. But this thing here, this little area here, that's shaded like that. That's called the Terminator. I had to explain it because when you do a sphere, and people always make it darker on this, like when you do chrome or something like that, right? That's anyway. Chrome can look like a Terminator, but it's not Terminator. It's the horizons. That's a confusion too. When you do chrome for spherical objects or cylindrical objects, you're not actually creating a Terminator. You're creating the horizon that's being reflected. But if you still kind of, that's what the Terminator kind of simulates a little, not really, but nonetheless, it makes it look like a real object. But it's created because of the secondary light that's coming in, so that the actual self-shaded area only goes so far, then it becomes illuminated by the secondary light. Okay, you wanted me to get technical, I'm technical. Okay. All right, back to occlusion. Thank you. Let's get out of this term. I had to explain it. Occlusion. How I approach it. So I do everything with occlusion, right? And then let me just make another layer. Just making layers today. I'll just make another oc layer. Doesn't matter. Not like paper or something. All right. So how I approach it, I usually use like a sloppy tool, like a marker or something. Real sloppy tool. I don't try to use most of my tools, I don't do anything that's accurate. Like, in other words, I love airbrush illustration, right? And technically you can use, a nice little airbrush, right? But I find it more interesting to smudge up a marker line than to sharpen up an airbrush line. So in other words, when I do occlusion, it's simple, fast way. Let's say if I did use the airbrush, which of course, I love airbrush, right? Then it's okay. This is the occlusion are the areas, for those who are not familiar. Occlusion are the areas that are not receiving any ambient light. They're not necessarily in. They're not in cast shadow, but the bouncing of light has become so minimal that the area is now darkened. It generally happens. If you've had me for 3D classes, then you've heard me talk about occlusion all the time. It generally happens. I'll just do this in red. When two areas meet. My brush is lagging, so I have no line because I'm recording like this. But it's an experiment. I want to see what 60 frames does. So the light will bounce. Let's say bouncing. Light's coming in, and it's going to hit, and it's going to bounce here, and it's going to go bounce there, and it's going to go bounce there. But as it bounces, and I know it's also being lit directly, but as it bounces, it becomes lesser and lesser, or less intense, less intense, less intense. So you wind up having a crevice or an area like that's, whoa, what did you just do, buddy? Okay, I'll do it. No, I'll just do it in gray. Just do it in gray, dude. You'll wind up with an area that's like this, right? Where the two areas meet, okay? And you can even see it. You can even see it in my hand, where my palms meet. You can actually see it gets darker, right? It's not a cast shadow from the hand, right? It's because there's not enough ambient light bouncing around, and it has no direction. That's occlusion. So first thing I do, I think about the occlusion. Also think about the self shading. So self shading would be like so I don't have a direct light here, but let's say if you can see a direct light hitting my hand, as it turns away from the light from my window, you'll see it starts to get darker, right? But it's not actually getting darker. It's just not illuminated by the light. That's called self-shading, right? And these are just 3D terms, right? I like to use 3D terms because it's consistent. It doesn't vary per artist or anything like that. It just is. So, and it also helped me to understand what a lot of painters, classical painters, were thinking at the time, what they were trying to interpret, and when they did certain techniques and stuff, and then why certain techniques changed over time. Either way, so I'm going to use a sloppy airbrush. So, no, we're just going to use the accurate airbrush. So here's the airbrush, and I'm just going to go one more darker, right? So technically, this would be like the occlusion would be here, right? Right, it'd be in here, but see, it's too. That's the airbrush. It's just too sloppy, right? And then let's say, then I would cut it in like this, right? It's just too. It's not too sloppy. It's too gradated. Actually, I actually like it to be a little bit more lively. So that's one way of generating occlusion. That's the occlusion. The self-shading. The self-shading is, let's say, I'm going to add it all in the same thing. Self-shading is the light's coming from this direction. Let's say, so this area would be receiving, I'm going to put it in red. This area would be receiving the highest value, which is light. You have to determine which the full direction is. I'll say this is medium. So if this is light, medium, because the light's coming from this direction. But from an upward, more upward like that, not like this one. Can we get an eraser? Right. And so then this would be dark, right? So now that helps us to medium and dark. So that helps us to determine, and this would be light. So this guy could get technically a highlight on the rim, right? So the occlusion would come in. No, the occlusion is already there. So that's one of the things. First things I lay in is the crevices, the occlusion. Then the self shading, which is blah 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 blah. We'll go in with a marker. Let's just go into marker gray. That value, like not 50%, but a little bit darker than 50%. Right, and then this is the self-shading. So this, and I determined. So I said this is my darkest value. That's how I'm doing it. As far as this, as far as on the form, right? That's my darkest value, right? And then I'm just doing this in a staggered way. We can go medium. So I'm just doing it really mechanical. So you can see. This is all self-shading. Or how much light that area, better way of thinking of it, how much light that area is receiving from the light. And I'll just go one up. I don't go white. I just go one more up higher. That's not white. So I can go one darker. No, let's go just inch it up there. Okay. All right. Well, I'm using marker, so the marker is not going to trigger right. There you go. Okay, we use this guy. Okay. And that's not white. That's actually not even close to white. And we do the same thing for this guy here. Blah, 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 blah. Medium. Did I go to medium on him? Right. And then we're going to go dark again on the other one. Right. And so this one, so in a way, now this is a little too heavy, right? That gray there. That gray should be a little dark. I need more values here, right? So that shouldn't be so high up, because then we lose any attempt at high. So what we have, and then I would that occlusion. So then the occlusion maybe needs to be a little bit heavier. So maybe that would be on another layer. And then we go in with a marker, like how I traditionally would do it. Not traditionally, but how I do it, period. Medium, my marker. I'm in airbrush. See, I like to use my marker. I like to use the marker because I can use the marker like that. I can go in, I can cut it up real fast, or I can smudge it up real fast like that. It feels better. Marker. Okay. So that would be the occlusion right here, right? Like that. I'm just being sloppy with it. Okay. And then I would go in. I would prefer to go in that like that, and then go in and then I can soften it or something, right? All depending upon how, because it's going to gradate, but I want to control the gradation. When you do airbrush, you really can't control the gradation. It's like you have gradation automatically, and then you want to cut into it. So airbrush is good for this. Airbrush is good for this. So if you had like this, like some kind of heavy shape like that, and then you needed to cut into it, right? Then you need to do stuff like this, right? Right. If you were making some kind of pattern-ish kind of thing, that's where the airbrush comes in. But I prefer to use, once again, I prefer to use the marker, because the marker gives me more range. I can blend, I can soften that marker real fast, right? In any direction I want. I can flare it. Okay. I can then go in with it with eraser, right? Soft eraser, and then totally destroy it to some degree, right? Creating a whole different shape, right? Remember, I think like how SDF thinks, right? So one thing can become multiple. The more range I get off of one stroke, the better. Airbrush, I don't get that much range. Airbrush is like, here it is, and then all I can do is like one more thing to it. When I do a straight marker, straight marker, then I can blur it, blend it, cut it, and I can do all kinds of stuff to it. So anyway, so this is the whole process. Now you notice I didn't talk about using multiply or overlay for layers and stuff like that, which is sometimes what I do in order to obviously to regulate the intensity, all depending upon the form. What I find, because I print most of my stuff, right, at large scale. So what I find is, if I stay, the truer I stay to the image, or the truer I stay to, hey, this is the value, the correct value for that section. Let me not use multiply, blah, blah. The better I find that, the better the print comes out. That's how I found. The more accurate the print comes out. Okay, so that's another reason why I do what I do. So like I model for animation, I draw for print. Okay, so this is why I work at a particular resolution. I work within a particular methodology and stuff. Yeah. So, and same thing when I do photography, studio photography. Yeah, I shoot for print, even though most of the stuff is just everything is just digital now. Okay, so anyway, we went through all of this, right? We went through all of this, and we're going to talk about, since I can talk about it. So let's add, just ignore all this, and let's add the some occlusion. So we have a real oc layer, right? So I'm just going to, we'll just use this layer. And I'm going to use my marker because remember I said, oh, maybe people can't see what's going on here. So let's just use a marker, my regular occlusion color, boom, right? And yeah, this is like just low, it's like lower than the dark. So this is not, this is not the, this is not shadow. This is just where the ambient light, some people would say it was shadow. The ambient light is not reaching. Some people may say it's shadow, but it's not. It's not. I think of shadow as cast shadow. Okay, because in 3D you have three things, three primary things. You have, once again, you have the object self shading. When it comes to shape, when it comes to darker forms, the object self shading, the occlusion, and the object's cast shadow. Those, and I keep it simple like those. Those three things. You know, I don't blend my occlusion with my shadow. Well, it may look like that in the image, but in my mind, I address them separately, right? And you see I'm using marker, so the marker does this, right? Because the way it's set up, it'll do that, which is great because it breaks up the line. It keeps me from having flat areas, right? Because variation is what's important in a lot of this type of stuff I do. Because I go like this, right? And I may even, see, I'm about to get carried away. So I'm go and work it in through here. And I think very much like I'm working on a black and white image, obviously. It's gonna turn away, turn away, turn away. Okay. And then let's say I want to go in, and then I go in and I would soften. Now I'm going fast, so ooh, that's real rough. Okay, I'll go with it. All right, that's real rough. And then let's go in with. Can we get away with it? Let's see what this brush takes us. I need it bigger though. So that's the occlusion. Oh, I missed an area. Sorry. Right now, once again, I don't. If I did a fill, then I wouldn't get any of this mottled type of stuff, right? Which is important because it adds to the. It's like it adds to the flavor of it later on. Because this is like not even first stage kind of stuff, right? And then we start doing stuff like this. Once again, it's lagging a little bit, so I'm not getting the strokes I want. Right now, when I'm doing this, I'm addressing the areas that are catching light. Okay. Yeah, something like that. And if I can't see it because can't see it anymore, right? And let me go hard on this one. So if I can't see it anymore, because sometimes it does get busy, right? If I can't see it anymore, right, then I turn upside down. Then I go, oh, it needs to be cleaned up. And I see, oh, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Then I'll go going like this, right? Because I can feel it now when I'm looking down at it, right, like that. Okay. And then I see there's a bulgy thingy. Not bad, but I don't like it. No, hold on. There was something right here. I just want to scoop it in a little bit. Nope. I'm looking at it bending out wrong way. There you go. Yeah, that felt right. Okay. And so in here it gets model. I'm also feeling that she should have some kind of occlusion in here. All right, so once again, I'm not dealing with shadow, I'm just dealing with occlusion. Whoop. Okay, right, and that starts the initial thing. Her body is going to be a little different. So how it works now that we have that, now I can turn my blue on. Oh my gosh, this blue is like killing me. Right? But just as an example, and I would turn on. Let's go right side up again. Now she's not going to be sporting blue. She's not going to be sporting blue. But this is just as an example. And then now we can say, we want to like a not color burn, yeah, we can do color burn or something like that, right? Whatever you want to do, multiply, anything to bring it in. And then what I usually do is I drop it down, right? So I don't usually let it run at 100, like all the way up. I usually drop it down a little bit. I have a special number I do, right? And so basically what I'm saying is that this is the, that this is the gown. So that's what I'm seeing. So I did all that to say, oh, this is what I'm seeing, right? And sometimes I multiply the occlusion layer. All depends upon where is it going, right? We'll just put on multiply for right now. But if I don't want to put on multiply, if I just want to do it like that, then I'll just duplicate the layer. It gives me a little more control. Right, I duplicate the layer, and then I'll adjust the I'll bring in the first layer or something, and then I just finagle between the two of them, right? But it all depends on where I'm trying to go with it. But once again, you can still use multiply to get the blend a little bit better. But by the time I start having all the different like color tones and stuff like that to go in along with everything, then you'll see it. But anyway, I just want to do that so everybody could understand what I'm seeing, which meant I had to address occlusion, which also meant that I had to address blocking it in, and then also address occlusion, and then why I use certain brushes to do certain things in that process, right? So let's see if we can get just a little bit more. I'm not sure what time it is, but well, we'll keep it short. I don't want to make it too long. The next one we'll continue on with the form, because I didn't know I was going to go into all the occlusion thing, but it's a good thing to address, because once I tighten up the form, then that's the next step is the color process, which pushed me through occlusion. But at least you guys can see where I'm thinking as I'm going, right? And then everything starts to spice itself up. But I hope it is one thing I did want to do, because I was looking at it the other day and I was like, I need to change this. Because right now I haven't settled on the head. I haven't settled on the head structure, right? Let me see. Where are we in the layer? Oh, we're in the wrong brush too hard. Let's go, please. Yeah. There you go. That's all I want. That's literally all I want to do, is go like that. That's all I wanted to do. It was just standing out to me. We'll leave the breast area pretty much the way. Well, wait a minute. Let's just grab this and have it unify a little bit, just a little bit, right? And then not make it so awkward. No, we'll leave it just like that, because it's going to have a little secondary. Let it bulge like that, because it's going to be for a suggestion of that is the rounded form, like going counter to the rounded form. So some things I just leave it just as is, and all the stuff can be cleaned up to some degree. Some things are going to be left. Okay, all right, we'll go on to another one. I don't want to make this one too long. All right, okay, all right. Thanks for watching.